Story 1. Ida for wanting space for my nieces and nephews? My boyfriend, 35, and I, 30, have 2 nieces and 3 nephews from our 2 sisters, that often spend holidays etc. at my house. In the summer this becomes every weekend and some weekdays as well. We have an above-ground pool the kids love. We love both sisters as well as our nieces and nephews. But both have come unprepared. Without food. Overstayed. I am not taking 2 or 3 hours, I'm talking about 8+ hours hanging out. My boyfriend is very social while I am more reserved. Last year these parties were a point of contention for me. I would get help sometimes, but often would have tons of dishes. Muddy footprints through my deck/house. And overall both sisters really just want to relax and not worry. Key points: my boyfriend and I work 6 days a week to be able to afford a bigger place, with a yard for our dogs, and a nice setup. We live in a very high-cost area. So more often than not, these get-together would be centered around our day off. I did try to stand up for myself and ask for help with dishes or food to be brought if they were planning on all day, but this only happens sometimes. Now to recently, one of the boys, A8, fathers, E, works for my boyfriend and we have welcomed him into our home temporarily. He pays rent for a room. My only ask was please limit Saturday night sleepovers because Sunday is my only day off and I want to sleep in. Also if he is coming over I just want a heads up so I can figure out food etc. The kid only eats bacon, fruit, and PB&J. I won't lie, sometimes I do get upset about the kids coming over without notice because I have plans like cleaning or spending time with my boyfriend, which will not happen if they're over. I feel like everyone in my family has kids and are oblivious to this. Like aunt and uncle are supposed to work 6 days a week and support 5 kids every weekend. Anyway, he spent the night the last 2 Saturdays, as well as his birthday here last week. He sees him every other day or so right now. Last week during another child's birthday, D12, C10, ruined D's birthday by ripping her off her bike, and ripping up her wrapping paper when her gifts came out. Next time C came with siblings to play in my pool, fought with them, when I suggested for him to cool off by playing some video games he brought, he told me to shut the fuck up. A few days later when we were celebrating his birthday, C didn't want to talk to me. I asked to have a conversation with him before he got into pool and he stormed off. Later he tried to apologize with a "sorry," and I told him if he's such a big boy to use those kind of words he can look me in the eye and apologize like a man. He ran off and said at least my not a spoiled fucking brat like A. I feel like he just wanted to ruin his birthday and simultaneously just fly by me and go swimming, likely fighting and strangling A in the process. This boy has also chased down other kids telling them that he wants to kill them. He has strangled his brother multiple times. I am not as worried for me at this point. Just the fact he has no respect for children or adults. And I'm afraid if he can't even own up and apologize he will just go off and hurt others without regard. My boyfriend restrained him after screaming about his brother and running towards A in a rage. He walked/dragged him to the front yard where he sat him down and gave him a water. He told C that they could just hang out. They could just go on a walk. He tried to talk to him. Nothing. 2 hours he sat with him, missing his birthday, before he told his mom to take C home. After the 2 horrible birthdays, we decided this weekend that there would be no pool or kids. They wanted a bigger party for his birthday. I said not this weekend. My sister and her kids were not part of this interaction. My dad, who lives with me, invited the over today and the kids read, and when they wanted in the pool I said the sprinkler is fine. I did try to inform my sister that we were cooking it this weekend but we played phone tag. Admittedly I could have texted her. I realize I was not firm about the no kids thing, but I called my sister 6 times yesterday to warn her that we are taking it easy this weekend. I could have told her to go home but her kids were reading and being well behaved. Then the father wanted to have A over for an hour or 2. It turned into 4. It was 10 p.m. and he comes out and says thank you for letting me spend the night. What? First, it's the 3rd Saturday night/Sunday in a row. Also he only said in HR maybe 2 at 5 p.m. His mom did pick him up at 10 p.m.-ish after I was like, what, audibly enough for his father to hear. Where I know I'm the asshole is I am a pushover. I'm working on it, but what's grinding my gears is I know that the sisters both think that I am overreacting. I am the one that always puts boundaries. But really I did it this time because the 4th is my boyfriend's favorite holidays. I know he wants all the kids there. But I saw the look in his eyes after trying so hard to get through to C. C has stayed at my house many times. We love C. And my boyfriend doesn't have a dad. C's dad isn't in the picture. I think my boyfriend loving C and having him be so violent and disrespondent broke him. The day after I asked him if he wanted kids/pool/party this weekend. He said we should take a break. He's just burnt. So I stood up for him. I told his sister no party this weekend. I told all the kids no pool this weekend. Am I really the asshole for not having a party this weekend? Am I the asshole for sending a home? I feel all this resentment from everyone who was so happy with me last week. Enjoying the videos? Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to enjoy more dank wizard Reddit content. Story 2. Ada for making my best friend leave my apartment after being too friendly with my BF. The other night I, 22, had my best friend, 22, come over for the first time to the apartment I share with my BF, 24. They have interacted multiple times and it has always been chill. Everything was going great until they started talking about video games, which I really don't know much about. Before this she had made a comment about how I should get a hobby since I was ahead of her on Love Island. LOL. She had been relating to my BF about music and stuff before this as well, but I wasn't really thinking much of it. Looking back, a lot of behaviors were giving pick me vibes, and I even had to say, I'm speaking now, because she was talking over me to my BF. Anyways, the topic of video games starts up and they just keep talking for what seemed like ages, and I was starting to, I think, become visibly upset. It's also important to note we had all been drinking. I got fed up on waiting to be included and walk into the bedroom to just kind of wait and see if they even notice or pause the conversation. Nope. They sounded like they were having the time of their lives. At this point I'm crying and texting my other good friend about the situation to see if I'm being crazy. She validated my feelings and said she would be extremely upset too. The conversation only ended when my friend came into the bathroom and noticed I looked upset. I told her to GTFO and she told my BF she was going to leave BC. I'm pissed, so he came and checked on me immediately. Their conversation took an hour. I told them that and explained how I had patiently waited for about 30 minutes before I started to get uncomfortable. We did talk about it that night and she left even though the original plan was for her to sleep over. I talked about it further with my BF and he has made me feel better on his end, but part of me is still very upset with my friend as I feel that none of my other girlfriends, including myself, would ever feel comfortable talking to a BF for that long without including the GF or at least checking in. I have also since told her I need some space because I am still hurt by her actions that night. Am I the asshole here? Story 3. AITA for being upset that my husband is trying to sell my stuff? Let me preface this by saying that we, apparently, had a conversation that anything in our house that wasn't tied down, we were going to get rid of. I 30F and my husband 43M are getting ready to move and money is tight. We are trying to go room to room and sell stuff to make a little cash on the side for our big move in a month. We have 4 kids, 13M, 11F, 9M and 6F. While in my daughter's room this evening I saw her switch case and my switch case, which is normally in my bedside table, by themselves, and her switch case had no games in it. Our 6-year-old daughter asked me where her switch was. I confused just as much as her thought, where is my switch? I approached my husband and asked him where my switch was. He looked baffled at first, long paused, and said, they're in a box getting ready to get sold. I said calmly, but that's my switch, and our daughters, we use those. Were you just not going to tell me you were selling our stuff till after? He flies off the handle screaming to me about money problems and not knowing if we're gonna make it this month, and he does all this stuff to keep us afloat. Mind you, I work 50 hours a week on my feet and he works 35 max, mostly driving his car. I am taken aback and just calmly walk myself to the bedroom, and I am extremely upset. When you're married, you're supposed to talk about selling anything with your partner before you plan to do it, right? Especially if it is someone else's property. He had it hidden in a box, and when he confronted me in the bedroom about it 15 minutes later while still screaming at me about money, and that's when I lost it. How would he feel if I just started selling his property without asking him about it? These aren't his items, they're mine and my daughter's. We play those. Was it done maliciously that he didn't tell me and wouldn't have told me until after he sold them? That's what he told me. I'm upset and taken back. What gives him the right? So AITA? Story 4. Asking for communication. A little backstory. My 32F marriage has been a mess for 5 years. My husband, 33M, and I almost got a divorce last year, but he said he wanted to reconcile, so the divorce was dismissed. And I got pregnant very shortly after. Christmas Day, I found out he had been sending money to some woman I didn't know. In this, I also found that he was messaging her on WhatsApp and referring to me as ex-wife. So, I mentally checked out. I told him I knew about her, but because I'm a Psalm and the divorce that didn't get finalized left us broke, we had no choice but to remain in the same home. But I was done. A few days later, he gave me this story about how they met online when the divorce was almost finalized. He was lonely and was just helping her out, blah blah blah. So he told me it was done and over, she was blocked, and hoped I could forgive him. I said I wasn't going to make any decisions either way until after the baby was born. He said I could have his phone password and access to his things to prove himself. The baby was born in March, and one of the first days home with the baby, my husband's phone password was changed and he wouldn't tell me it when I told him I couldn't get in his phone. Then on my way to baby's first doctor's appointment, I found out my husband sent the woman more money. So I knew I was done because he lies and lies and lies, and I will never believe a single word out of his mouth again. At this point, I made a plan with my mom to move out when the school year ended, as my daughters do ballet and had a recital in late May. It was a long 8 weeks staying with him. And at the end, I found out he was telling our young children horrible things about me, like I was cheating at 8 weeks postpartum and that demons were digging a special hole in hell for me. So that really just solidified that I needed to leave with our children. We left, which brings me to my predicament. I told him numerous times that if he communicates with me, I will bring the children for weekend visits every other week. He doesn't have a vehicle. 2 weeks after we left, I took the kids to see him Saturday and Sunday. I texted him first that I hadn't heard about them visiting, then he replied and we made a plan. So again, I've told him several times he needs to communicate with me about visits. And here we are, 2 weeks later, and he has not tried to communicate with me at all about visiting until this morning, Saturday. I told him I couldn't bring them today, and that I need time to prepare as it's a 2.5-hour trip one way and we have a young baby. Now he's telling me it's my fault because he has asked over and over, but he hasn't tried once to make a plan. He has only texted me to FaceTime them several times over the 2 weeks, but not once has to try to communicate about when he would be available for the kids to visit. So the kids aren't visiting this weekend, and I told him in the future he needs to text me on Wednesday so I can be prepared and get their things ready for them to go visit him on Friday through Sunday. Ada for not taking them to visit this weekend since he didn't communicate with me as I asked him to. Story 5. Ada for breaking up with my LD boyfriend because my mom hates him? This is a long post, so I apologize in advance. I just really need extra reassurance, so please give me some advice. I, 18F, have had a long-distance boyfriend, 18M, for about 8 months. We became friends in 2023 and have been on and off talking for a while. We met online, and have not yet officially met in person, but we were planning to meet in person in July. The reason we had been on and off friends for those 2 years is because my parents were convinced he is not a real person and was some kind of catfish or involved in human trafficking. I, being stubborn, didn't believe them and we continued talking. I have seen his face and have his full legal name, so I know what he looks like and where he lives, etc., but that doesn't really prove much about the human trafficking part. When we started officially dating last October, I told my parents we were talking again and officially dating, which they were very upset about. However, since I was officially an adult, they didn't force me to break up with him or anything. During our relationship, my BF and I have talked about visiting each other. There were some concerns that my parents raised about him that I began to sincerely think about. 1. He lives in Canada, and apparently is not a legal citizen and has no passport, so he can't leave. I would have to visit him if we ever met in person. 2. He doesn't like my mom either, which is fair since she is not the greatest mother. However, whenever I talked to him about the concerns she had, he would say she was being controlling and manipulative. 3. Originally, I was going to bring my sister, 20F, with me for the trip for safety and extra approval from my parents. When I mentioned this to him, he sort of sighed and got sad that we wouldn't have private time together. I ended up deciding not to bring her and go by myself. However, when the actual trip was scheduled, he suddenly told me his brother, 22M, would be coming with him. Last week, my mom and I were in another state for a trip and I told her I would be going on the trip. It was originally scheduled for July 5th to 12th. She grew hysterical and was very upset the whole day. She asked me details about the trip and the more I told her the more she freaked out because she didn't think it was safe. She then started telling me stories about people who got trafficked, and I got so anxious I almost threw up. Throughout the whole day, we talked more and more, and as she told me things that didn't add up, I got a sinking feeling in my gut and my brain was screaming at me that she was right. The big thing though was that she told me if I went on this trip, she wouldn't pay for my college and she would cut me off from my family, especially my little sister, 12F, who I have a strong bond with because I stepped up to raise her at a young age when my mom couldn't. I panicked and knew I didn't want to lose my education, but especially my little sister. Later that day, while hysterical, I called my sister, 20F, and my best friend, 19F, and asked them to help me figure out what to do. I talked to my sister because she knows me and my mom best, and my best friend knows more about my relationship with my BF. I told them my concerns, not just about the trip but about my relationship with him in general, and they said if I was even considering breaking up with him I should probably do it. Some of the concerns I had about just our relationship: 1. He was making me feel isolated from everyone I knew. I would tell him about something upsetting that a friend or family member did and he would tell me that they were awful people and didn't truly care about me. 2. He wouldn't prioritize me. During the week, we would set aside time to call since we can't actually be together. It was like our own little dates, and sometimes just to talk and connect. Sometimes during that, he would just ask if he could call someone else, and once he called someone else while I was still on the phone and just muted me so I wouldn't hear them. 3. Sometimes I would complain about little things, not anything really big, but just insignificant stuff. He would try to tell me how to fix it, and when I would say I'm just complaining, he would tell me I shouldn't complain. He then got upset when I once tried to help him solve something he was just complaining about, but I never even told him that he shouldn't complain, it was just miscommunication. 4. Taxidermy triggers me. I have an anxiety disorder and extreme paranoia, and seeing or discussing taxidermy triggers anxiety tics and extreme dissociation for me. I told him this once when his friend was texting me and showing me their taxidermy stuff. I expressed my concern to him while him and I were on the phone and told him exactly what it triggers. He told me he would make sure to tell them not to tell me about it, but then he started going into the details of their collection for about 10 minutes and it caused me to dissociate, right after I had just told him I didn't like to see it or talk about it. 5. Whenever I would bring up any of these things or other things to him to talk about it, he would tell me he doesn't remember his thought process in the moment so he couldn't explain himself. This made me feel I could never get closure on the things he did that hurt me. All of these things and more that I can't remember right now were the reasons I used in the breakup text I sent him. He was upset at first, but then he told me he understood that it was over. He asked me if, once I got home from the trip with my mom, if we could call so we could each get closure on things, which I agreed to. During this call, he told me almost verbatim the things my mom told me about him, but he said then about her. That I was being manipulated by her, that I was going to die if I stuck with her, and that I needed to cut her off but that it was up to me so he couldn't force me. I just sat there in silence and listened. He then told me all the things I did during the relationship that hurt him. He had never once told me about these things, he never mentioned them. If they hurt him so much, why didn't he tell me before? 1. I was forgetful, I have severe ADHD, and I forgot a bunch of important things that he cared about, which he didn't tell me about until the call. 2. I didn't plan things for him/us, especially not planning something to do for his birthday. It was during the trip, but I was visiting him so I didn't know the area. Also, I planned a Valentine's Day date, but I haven't planned a lot of anniversary stuff so he's not entirely wrong. 3. I wasn't good at comforting him or emotionally supporting him. One of my biggest fears is that I'm not good at comforting people, because I rely solely on physical touch, my love language, and doing things for them because I'm not good with comforting words. Both things I can't do for him because we're long distance. He told me that I should have been afraid about that because it was true. He said I had been trying and doing a bit better recently, but overall I wasn't good at it and I made him feel worse. I understand where he's coming from, but it hurts so much to hear. It bothered me that he didn't tell me any of these things while we were together, and instead waited until after the breakup to tell me. It really hurt because I would have much rather he told me these things a while ago when they happened and were relevant. All the things that I used as reasons to break up with him were all things I had expressed concern about during the relationship but still hurt/never changed. After talking for 3 hours, we did decide we wanted to stay friends since we are in the same online friend group and we both cared about the others in the group and didn't want to make the other person choose to leave, and because we care about each other. We had some lighthearted conversation towards the end of the call and said, "I love you," for the last few times before we hung up. We're going to be no contact for a few months to heal before we try to rebuild the friendship. We also agreed that we would never try to date again or entertain the idea. Also, aside from the things I said earlier, I always felt that he was overall a good boyfriend. For the most part, I felt loved and supported by him, but I honestly don't fully think the breakup was a bad idea. I am afraid though that I was not a good partner to him because of all the stuff he told me at the end that he had apparently been feeling hurt about the whole relationship and never told me. I feel bad for that, and I also feel like an asshole for breaking up with him. So, Ada for breaking up with him?